All right, welcome back to our Training Day podcast. I got my man Jamie Chirio on with me today, who somehow I found a way to butcher his name in the recent history here. But Jamie, I'm happy to have you on FFL Living Hope. You've been crushing this business for a while now, and to be honest, I've heard about you so many different ways. I got a chance to see you present at Founders Day, some of the things that you've done to create, you know, ridiculous onboarding rates with agents, but legendary inside of FFL America. Some of the stuff you've done from a marketing standpoint, you and Grady as like, two peas in a pod, brain wise. And to hear you move from the West Coast all the way over to the East Coast, which is like shocking to me because when I think about that whole hierarchy, I think about the West Coast. So to hear you in South Carolina is amazing, man. But you've done some great things from a recruiting standpoint, from a retention standpoint, from a, kind of making your own way standpoint. So we want to hear about that. And I appreciate you jumping on with me. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm so good, man. I've been watching this podcast for a long time and very happy to be here.
Well, we're happy to have you, man. And what I want to know from you is this. We have this board member agency that you've built. How long have you been with FFL?
3 years.
Okay, so not long. Helping thousands of families a month. And you are part of this group that came out of the ground like a beanstalk, the way I like to say it. And you're part of this group, but you've got this background about you, marketing wise, that allows you, and I've seen, make provisions to the business when we were coming in that made us look like we were dinosaurs. And then you're moving at this pace, and then you're hiring a bunch of people, but also keeping a bunch of people. And all of this is coming from what's up here. And I want to know more about that. And as I was saying earlier, I kind of wish we got you on earlier, but I'm thrilled to have you on the podcast now. So if you can give us a little bit of your background on like where you're coming from, how you found FFL, and then what brings you now to South Carolina, which is like, by the way, not that far. So we've got to do some collabs here. But I want to hear from you, brother.
Absolutely. And I'm happy to be on now. If you would have got me on earlier, I've learned so much more in the last year. So I think there's a lot more to be shared. It's not just a rocket ship. It's been a roller coaster, but it's been, up and to the right for the most part. So I did get excited being here for 3 years. I mean, I think if I look at the calendar, just about 3 years ago, I sold my first policy,
Wow.
which is really exciting. Just to kind of rewind from there. I have been what I like to call a wantrepreneur for a little over 10 years. I have done a handful of different things. So got this little energy drink here. Grady and I when I was 18 years old, and we sold energy drinks to college students, and we told them that if they drank them, they wouldn't be hungover the next day. Yeah,
Hey,
it was a lot of fun.
how long have you known Grady?
I've known Grady for 12 years.
Nice.
So Grady's probably one of my oldest friends that I still stay in contact with.
Nice.
We built that business. We built it big. We had thousands of college students all over the country and even in other countries that were selling these things. And it was a fantastic experience. We were kind of the loudest, fastest in that industry at the time, kind of like how FFL is. So naturally, they decided to change some rules for marketing based on what we did and our company. Um, so our company, unfortunately, though, had to shut their doors. So we went from thousands of distributors. I was 19 years old, making what I thought was, really good six-figure income to that just shutting off overnight. And of course, you lose a sales opportunity. What's the first thing you do when you have a group of, sales agents behind you is you find the next thing and you jump to the next thing. So we jumped to the next company. Of course, when you go to a new deal, you lose 60% of your team. And, now you're selling the vision on the next group, the next, thing. And it wasn't what we had sold it out to be. So lasted about a year. And the next company decided I wanted to start my own direct sales company. Had a lot of fun doing it. It was in the travel and adventure space. It fell flat on our face. Company filed bankruptcy. Saving grace of it all is that I met my wife there. So very happy that happened. Got out of the direct sales network marketing world and tried to start my own traditional business in the marketing space because I realized I was always creating marketing material for our agents to help recruit and do different things. So built up what on paper looked like to be a really successful business. We did over $1 million a year. However, I had 4 partners, I had 4 employees, I was the operations guy. When it was all said and done, I was working 90 hours a week to pay
Wow.
myself $2,000 a month. So, the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. And that's kind of when I got reconnected with Grady. Grady kind of saw where things were going with my traditional business. He said, "Hey, man, I think that you would crush it selling insurance. However, based on where you're at in your life, I know you're a little bit jaded on building sales teams. What I actually need is I need a staff person to come in and help me on the marketing and recognition side." So Grady actually hired me as a
Wow.
staff member for Family First Life America. And I did that for about 6 months before I sold my first policy in July of 2020. And what kind of led me to selling my first policy, other than, you make one too many recognition images and you go, man, if that goober over there can sell 10 policies in a week, I can too. But my wife was a teacher. She did that for about 10 years. She Pacific Northwest teachers, they get paid really well. So, she was kind of carrying the household from an income perspective. The world changed a few years ago. Everything went virtual. They didn't know how many kids were coming back in person versus virtual. Even though she was the veteran teacher, she was the new one at the school she was at. So she was the first one to get laid off.
Wow.
So we lose, 60, 70 grand in income overnight. And now I've got my 30, 40 grand in income from Grady. And I go, I have to make this up somehow. So I decided to get my insurance license and say, if I can sell 2 policies a weekend, I'll make up her income and everything will be okay.
Wow.
I went out, and obviously, big disclaimer for anybody watching who's new. Some people sell their first home. Some people don't sell for their first 30 days. I happened to help 8 families my first weekend, and the light bulb kind of went off for me. I continued to work for Grady for another 6 months. And then Grady ultimately made me fire myself because I was taking so much time away from working for him to sell and build an agency. And he's like, dude, I'm actually holding you back by still having you work for me.
Right.
And kind of forced me to jump out of the nest and, kind of fly on my own. It was the best decision that he could have, ever made for me. So that's kind of how we got here.
Man, that's a great story, dude. I mean, and I talk to Grady a lot about the MLM world, and you know, there was so many principles that thing taught us on
Absolutely.
recruiting and promoting and being loud and making, moving fast, right? Those businesses are unique, and I never really did like amazing at it. We had a team, few hundred people, but you learn so much with those principles. And isn't it crazy how a lot of those principles translated to who you are today and what we do today?
100%. I mean, it's the foundation of who I am in business, to be totally honest. And I think coming from those opportunities, like seeing this opportunity, like that's why, Grady and I talk about, and we say the best business ever, because we've been in businesses we thought were the best business ever. And then looking back and comparing, it's like I needed 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people in my group paying $150 a month in energy drinks for me to make a 6-figure income. And then here it's like you obviously, with nobody on your team, can go out and take care of everybody if you just want to sell insurance. And then if you do decide to build a team, I don't need 3,000 agents. I would
Right.
love to have 3,000 active writing agents. That'd be a
Sure.
legendary business, but
Right.
you can have 100, 200, 300 writing agents and make legendary income and like steward a lot of cash flow without having to have thousands of agents on your team.
That's a game changer, bro. That's what I saw. That's what I saw when I saw this business. I saw the same thing you're talking about, and it's like, if you have that MLM background and you come here, yeah, this is the best business ever, times 1,000, because it takes all those principles, except it pays.
I think it really can be the best business ever, or it can be the worst business ever from a different perspective, because a lot of the guys that I know who hit it big, and this was me when I first got here, is you feel like you did all your work way back in the beginning and you don't want to get back in the trenches and
Right.
go out there and kind of do that trench and
Right.
grunt work. So you feel like you're above it. So it actually took me a lot to kind of drop my ego and be like, oh, 10 years ago you were a big deal and now you're going to meet Miss Mary, who's 84 on an oxygen tank at her house,
Right.
and it smells like cat pee. I really had to humble myself to do that type of work. And I think a lot of people who come from that background, if they've made it big, they struggle to kind of get back in the trenches.
Happens all the time, dude. And it's why, you know, it's admirable what you're doing. You've built a massive business. And I think that, like, at FFL, it's very easy to feel like you're not doing much as an agent if you're helping 20 to 30 families a month because there's someone helping 150. You know, it's very easy to think that, a company helping 12,000 families a year is small. I'm like, calm down. Like, that's a big business. You know what I mean? And it's like, you don't just get there overnight. And I think it's also, it's funny you're saying all of this because you've been doing this for 3 years. It's funny what people do with success, Jamie. 3 years. You know what you would have paid in any 3-year season of your life to be where you are right now in that podcast room with the business you have? We have agents. You, me, Grady, we all have agents that treat 3 years like a death sentence. Like I've been doing this for 3 years, and I'm like, bro, number one, people lose their way, and they act like they can't, because they did the grunt work, they can't come back down and do it. Business doesn't go up in a straight line for the rest of your life. Business can take dips. It happens every day in the market. It happens every day in business. There's businesses, Kmart probably thought they'd never go out of business. Bed Bath & Beyond closed their doors. I never thought Bed Bath & Beyond was going to go out of business.
Sure.
What do you think that CEO, CMO, COO, that team, those VPs were thinking when it was time to get their fingernails dirty again to keep those doors open?
I think they decided it was time to move on because they didn't want to do the work.
Now, you and I both know, as small business owners, that, hey, man, if person X gets out the way and I got to fill person X's shoes, guess what I'm going to do? Fill person X's shoes because I have to.
Yeah. I think we got to play the 10-year game. That's what I kind of constantly talk to my leaders about. I've only been in business for 10 years. This is my 7th, 8th business. Wow. I've only been at this one for 3 years. Next year will be, now I'll have the longest streak in any one business, but I want to be in one business for 10 plus years. That's when I feel like I can judge if I'm successful or not.
That's strong. When you think about some of the things you've done from an innovative standpoint, from a recruiting standpoint, to start building, like you got in as a marketing person on Grady's team, you started selling, you sold 8 policies your first weekend, you started believing, right? And then at some point, you was like, you know what, the sales thing's cool, but I can build a business too. What was that transition like? And then what did the groundwork start to look like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I was kind of a secret agent when I first got started. I was like, I don't really want to be on any of the leaderboards, the podcasts, anything. I didn't want to be seen as like, okay, like I said, this 8th, 9th business in 10 years. I've got a pretty decent following on social media, and I really didn't want people to see me as like, oh, what's Jamie doing now?
Wow.
Like, what happened to his last business? I thought the digital marketing business that he was so excited about was doing so well, and when it was.
I've totally
and I didn't want anybody to know. So I had a conversation with my wife, and I said, hey, I love this because we don't have to have a conversation except for anybody but me and you. Let's take $1,500 out of our savings account. I'm going to go get my insurance license. I'm going to buy some leads. I'm going to go to work, and I'm going to talk to the Miss Marys and Bobs of the world who are raising their hand looking for life insurance. I'm not going to make a list of my friends and family. If at some point in my career, my friends and family want life insurance, I'll sell it to them, but I'm going to go sell to people that I don't know. Because I just didn't want those eyeballs looking at me again. And I didn't want anybody to be waiting for me to pop up in their, direct messages like, hey, here I am again, and here's my next opportunity. So what ended up happening was, I think I started building a business. It really wasn't my choice. What ended up happening was I got on the leaderboard. I started helping 30, 40, 50 families a month, did that a few months in a row. Andrew had me fly out to Vegas. put me on the FFL USA podcast, shared,
I remember
tagged,
that.
and
Was your
then
wife
it's
on
all
with
over
you?
social media. No, it was just me.
Okay, got it. Okay.
So shared, tagged all over social media. Grady puts me on his podcast, shared, tagged all over social media. Now it's on my timeline. And now the messages start pouring in from people from past opportunities like, yo, what's this? It seems like it's working. And then finally I guess it's time to build a business again.
Dude, your story and my story is very similar to when I started. I didn't want any parts of recruiting because I had done I'm like you, bro. I done flipped so many businesses in a very short window. So I totally resonate with that. But it's so funny. You're running from that and it's running towards you.
Yes.
Like you can't avoid it even if you wanted to. It's right. It's kind of in your blood.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that, the piece of advice I always give everybody is whether you want to build a business or not, if you find yourself at the top of the leaderboard, your business will start to grow.
Right.
It's just, it's inevitable.
Wow, I love that.
Productive people follow productive people. And like, if you're like recruiting non-productive agents, I always ask you, like, where are you on the leaderboard? Because like the guy that you're trying to recruit doesn't want to follow the 7 family a month guy or girl. They want to follow the 40, 50 family a month person that can teach them how to do it.
Right. That's amazing. Whether you want to recruit, if you're at the top of the leaderboard. So the top of the leaderboard does a lot for people. Fair enough? I think that's what you're saying. It eradicates financial issues. It attracts. I remember talking to Sean Mike, and I'm like, dude, I just want to sell. I just want to sell and not like make a whole lot of noise. Is that, in other words, could you like tone down my name on all these calls? He goes, you can't score 37 points a game and not be promoted. I'm like,
fact.
He goes, stop scoring 37 points a game. I said, I laughed so hard. I said, all right, I got it. But you're right. You know what I mean? Like you're attracting one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're attracting the people that you do want if you're up there, and you're attracting the people that you don't want if you're not, but you're attracting one way or the other. And I love that. So you start recruiting. Now, you get thrust into the scene, okay? Yeah. Then what happens? Because this is the scene you kind of didn't want, but had to embrace, yes?
Absolutely. I mean, and of course, initially, a lot of messages, a lot of phone calls, a lot of hires, but also realized who was the right person to hire and who wasn't. There was a lot of people that just came from, again, like I said, that same background as me, who they felt really entitled when they came here. And even though it's such a great opportunity, there were so many people who were those top leaders in previous opportunities that didn't want to do the grunt work again. So where I kind of found my niche, I guess, in the beginning was all those guys who they weren't quite the bad agents, but they weren't the top agents. They were somewhere in the middle that could never break that ceiling, whatever that was. So in my previous opportunity, it was someone who had never made $4,000 in a month. I was like somebody who would they made like $1,000 to $4,000 a month and they couldn't break that ceiling, but it was never the $10,000 a month guys. Like I had a hard time recruiting them in the beginning because they felt entitled. But the people who go, I've been teachable, I've been coachable, I've been doing all the same things as the $10,000 a month guys, I just haven't broken that ceiling yet. Like that was really my niche in the beginning. And then obviously it has transformed. Now, if I were to talk about who I'm trying to recruit, I'm trying to recruit myself. I'm trying to recruit the guy who's jumped from opportunity to opportunity, that was teachable and coachable the whole time, that had a handful of things happen that were out of their control, like a company shutting down, like that wasn't my fault. Different things that, a manager doing something that was out of their control, that took something away from them. My digital marketing business, it was a great business. I dealt with embezzlement from a partner, that was totally out of my control. The bank account was empty one day. And I'm looking for people who've been doing the right things, but they haven't found the result, jumping from opportunity to opportunity, trying to find a home.
Were those people appreciative?
Some of them. I'm a sunshine and rainbows guy, but once you get to know me, you learn I'm like also thunderclouds, rainstorms. Like I tell people how it is. I'm like, hey, this business isn't easy. I'm trying to scare you away most of the time. So a lot of the time, no, agents aren't appreciative, but a lot of them were.
So let's talk about this then. I mean, because you have legendary retention and your ability to onboard people, get them to hey, you said dark clouds and storms.
Yeah.
Sometimes that stuff is great, right?
Hmm.
You're trying to get people to quit before they start. That helps retention in our business. I don't know
Hmm.
if that's what you did, but I know that's what I try to do when I'm talking to people early because I don't want them to hear just about the money storms and just about what can be glamorous. I want them to hear what can be tough because it's the tough people that can get through tough times. So, talk to me about how you created this retention deal as you're bringing on new agents. And I mean retention for new agents. What happens in
Yeah.
5 years after someone's on your team? I'm talking more about people that have come that you start up and are sell their first policies and their first 5 policies, 10 policies, and are with you on your team. What did you do
Yeah.
to create that psychologically?
I think a lot of it just really comes back to, my story in business. I had so many times when I was not a good steward of the commissions that came in previous businesses that when I came into this business, like I made the decision that like half of what I make is not mine.
Mm.
Like half of what I make is not mine. 50%, is what is actually mine. Actually, none of it's mine. It's all my businesses. And if my business can afford to pay me a salary, then that's how I'm going to do it. But all of it's my business. Whereas in previous time, like all of it's mine. I can go spend it all. It'll come back next week. And then, things happen and your money doesn't come back. And, also didn't save anything for taxes in previous businesses. And when I was, I don't know, 2021, I realized that I owed the IRS like 50 grand plus interest, and no one ever taught me. My dad was a truck driver. Mom was a financial aid lady. And no one taught me these things, never been 1099. So I spent about 6-7 years on the hamster wheel trying to pay back the IRS. Had a fancy BMW, all the things from previous opportunities. Had to file bankruptcy in 2017 to get my way out of it. And it took me years to like just get level again. And then when I came here, I was level minus that debt, to the IRS. So when I came here, I said, this isn't my money. Half of what I make is mine. 30% no matter what, every single morning, even if I have $3 deposited into my bank account from a carrier, I'm going to transfer 30% into the savings account. It doesn't matter. Every single morning, no matter what, 30%, 30%, 30%. Knowing that I wasn't going to pay 30% in taxes, but I used what was extra there on days when I had a charge back, on days when I didn't have money for leads, when my deposits were low. I would borrow from myself on the days that I was smart and I saved 30%. I would borrow $1,000 for a batch of leads when I didn't have deposits for leads. And I borrowed for myself. And the next time I put 50% away instead of 30%. And I did that for a year and a half. And at the end of the year, when tax time came around, I went to go pay my taxes after deductions, and I had, extra money there. And I had extra money to be able to pour back into my business, to pour into recruiting, and to pay off my taxes. A year and a half later, I stroked a check to the IRS. I kept my payment minimum for, the first year and a half I was here. And I think a big mistake a lot of agents who have debt come in here is they go and they pay off all their debt right away and they starve their business because of it. Whereas I say, like, you've been paying minimum payments on your debt for the last 2 years. Like, why don't you just keep paying minimum payments so you prove you could be a good insurance agent here, and then start making like bigger payments on that stuff once you've proven you can stick around. But most people, they go and they make 10, 20 grand, they pay off all their credit card debt, then they get a charge back, then they have no money for leads, and they kind of screw themselves. So I'm like putting all these scenarios out there of what I've been through with agents really early on and asking them kind of how they think they should handle it, knowing like those are the kinds of things that I've been through. It's like, so we're going to set up multiple bank accounts. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Like 30% of everything you write is going to fall off the books no matter what. Like I'm throwing that out there up front. I'm making sure they understand what a chargeback is, letting them know that it will come, and being very, very real. And the goal is hopefully to scare them away. But if they're not scared after all of that, I know maybe I have somebody who, and then even if they're not scared after all of that, now it's, hey, if we get $1,000 worth of leads and we dial through them and 85 of them, tell you to F off, are you going to, like, how is that going to affect you? Like, is that going to affect you personally? Or are you going to focus on the fact that you got 15 appointments? So you're going to be so focused on the fact that those 85
That's
people
great
told you no or didn't answer. And then let's just say all 100 of them told you to F off. Are you going to call me to cry and complain about it? Or are you going to take personal responsibility and say, well, Mark could have called that same batch of leads and he probably could have booked 15 appointments, or Jamie could have called that same batch. It's not the leads, it's you.
Right.
Like, are you willing to take that personal responsibility in the beginning? So like I even have a video that's like, I think an hour and a half long in our boot camp in the beginning. It's called Real Talk. And I sit there with one of my top managers and we talk for an hour and a half about chargebacks, your attitude, personal responsibility. Basically the whole video, it starts off and it literally says warning. And it's like, we're going to try to get you to quit. And then we spend an hour and a half trying to get them to quit. And if they make it through that video, they can never say, no one ever told me this would happen. Because there was times in my business, I got to a point where I said, no one ever told me this is how it worked. I didn't realize this is roll-up debt. I didn't realize this is, lead bill, this, that, etc. So I just wanted to be upfront. It's the third video in our boot camp. You learn how you get paid, and then you learn about what's going to cause you to quit in this business. And if you don't save for your money, you don't save for taxes, you don't treat it like a real business owner, you're not going to make it. So I think what's helpful is that when that does happen to somebody, they knew it was going to happen. They might still not react the best, but they can't tell me, Jamie, you never told me that.
Dude, I love this. I don't think you were trying to be a entrepreneur. I think you were cutting your teeth in becoming an entrepreneur. This last segment, proved all your grit. When you talk about taking money and moving it every day for purposes of survival, that is called getting your butt kicked and adapting.
Yeah.
Because if you didn't get your butt kicked for 7 years, you would have never made that. That money would be in that account, and you would think you were rich. You know what I mean?
If the company didn't shut down and I went where I wanted to go, I would have been in a way worse financial position if it shut down 4 years later.
And it
would have been way worse.
But you're now teaching a clinic about it, and it's like, a clinic. People should listen to this and come out of this knowing that they have a shot, like a real shot to do something amazing. Because the thing that, and you talked about this, but money mismanagement is such a huge thing in our deal because the carriers advance the money, and it's sometimes it's a lot. And, the ability to understand that you have to buy leads and that you have to pay taxes. Dude, at the end of every year, I always had money left over in my tax account, which that's the biggest smile you can make. You pay the IRS, and there's money left over in an account that you were not counting for. Woo! Yep. Because whatever that is, 10,000, 30,000, whatever's left over, that's gravy train.
Absolutely.
You used it as gravy on your business. So I'm a fan, huge fan of your 10-year journey, because that's pretty much how it works, Jamie. And because you're alive to tell it, and you tell it so humbly, a lot of people can learn from it, and a lot of people can learn that basically what you do today is you're like, caution, 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 caution. If we can get around all these cautions, we can build a big business. But you can't do that 10 years ago. You can't. Nobody at the beginning of their career can have that many. We think we're bulletproof. We're going to build this business that'll last forever. And, so even though you say it's doom and gloom, really what it is reality. And then inside of that, you go, but there's hope, but there's this window, but there's this ability. We could punch through there. That's our ticket.
And I think what ends up happening is like the people that I see fall into these pitfalls, it's when selling insurance with Family First Life is most of the time their first business opportunity, and they've never been a 1099 person. They've never done this. So like when they do have that massive transition financially, they don't know how to handle it. And I think that those typically are the people who struggle the most here. So like those are the ones where if somebody hasn't been in business before, I want to spend a little bit extra time just to make sure they understand, like, hey, this is how it works. If you own a Subway franchise, what are you going to do? Are you going to go out and are you going to buy a Lamborghini first? Or are you going to make sure there's bread, meat, and cheese? Like, we're going to make sure there's bread, meat, and cheese. The employees get paid. The light bill gets paid before I go buy the Lambo. So like, don't go buy a $900 a month truck payment when you're a brand new agent because you made 10 families for the first time.
Right.
Like you're going to starve your business by doing that. Like I still drive a 2009 Toyota Corolla with 250,000 miles on it, put 200,000 of it just doing in-homes. And I got 2 missing hubcaps. My wife's got the nice car for the kids, but it's like, you don't necessarily, like, I would rather my financial health of my business be in a place where I'm not constantly stressed, wondering when my leads come out, is there going to be money there? That, I used to drive the fancy BMW, and it's funny because the whole new car thing fades away pretty quick. And we were on a road, we were on some trip a few months ago. I think I was in a Toyota, and I put my hand over top of the Toyota logo, and I was like, I feel like I'm back in my BMW. All I did was just cover the logo. Like it doesn't matter. So I'm not a car guy. For anybody who is, I'm not trying to offend, but I'd rather have it in the business at this point in time.
Dude, and that's the theme of this podcast is business principles of survival. And Jamie, you are, I would call you an expert at that after listening to you. And I'm excited to learn more about you and what the things you're doing, now, and the things you're going to be doing in the future to continue to grow FFL Live in Hope. I mean, you guys are crushing it, and I'm thrilled to have you as a guest on our podcast, brother. Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Jamie Chirio Training Day. I'm telling you, if you're new in business, this is a clinic. If you've been around in business, this is a clinic. This is a way for you to reflect upon what is truly important and how to stay alive in business. Thanks, Jamie, for sharing, brother. I appreciate this more than you know. Thank you. God bless, guys. Take care.